So this is just another few things, right, about this issue, right? So Ian Womersley and Carl Hankinson are basically complained, right? Womersley's going on about his new Scout logo, which is registered as an actual logo and copyright as well and trademark, right? But they've not been continuing to maintain the old ones. There are a few of them that they've continued to maintain, right? But he's basically said that this is an old logo, right? And this actually is meant to say Boy Scouts in, but Baden-Powell designed it to say Be Prepared underneath, right? But this is the officially recognised emblem. And he actually designed it. The actual purpose and intention of this, right, was actually meant to be a coat of arms like this, okay? That was the whole intention and purpose of it, to be like a coat of arms, right? This here is for Murfield and Hetmondwike, which is our area. It's actually for our area scouts, so we've actually got a logo for our area. Now, the thing is that this logo here, okay, this logo here is what Baden-Powell drew himself, right? And he drew it with like 3 elongations. Now, he's quoted for saying that it's meant to be like a compass pointing north or the head of a spear, right? And it's got like a tag in the middle of it, right? Almost like kind of a little ring around holding it together. And it says Be Prepared underneath. That's the motto. It's meant to also be a chivalrous emblem, a proper chivalrous emblem, right? And if you've actually got one of these or were given one at the time, it's actually yours, right? If you remember. And they did give trophies and awards out and various awards, right? So you've got an emblem like this, right? So it's official when you've got it for you. If you win a trophy, right, and you do a CV with your achievements in it, and you want to include your achievements, right, in the CV, you note the achievements in it in an official document, right, and it displays the picture. You might have a picture of the trophy. If you won a trophy, right, you might show a picture of the trophy in your CV, right? So if you're writing an official document, an application, right, then you might use the trophy in the CV, right? Now, trophies don't change. They don't come around and change the trophy. The trophy is what it is for the time when it's issued, right? Okay? And I've actually got a hat, a really beautiful Scouts hat that I picked up on eBay recently that's actually got these logos and emblems on them, right? On the actual hat. Now, they might not be using them now. They might have gone on to the modern logo, but, you know, getting onto the subjects of the knights, right? If a knight gets issued with a cross, right? He keeps that cross. If they bring out a new cross, right, then they don't recall all the old ones. They don't recall all the awards. And actually, you know, those awards and crosses, when people use them after their name, right, they've got the right to entitlement to use it as it attributed to them when it was awarded or given, right? So they don't recall them and send out new logos and make new logos, right? So now, this is the thing. There's a lot of things that are known but not spoken about or not said, right? Now, I know that Baden-Powell isn't noted for being associated with West Yorkshire, but Sir Patrick Stewart is, and they look very similar, right? And Patrick Stewart was chosen to be to lead the Starship Enterprise in the TV programme because it's boldly going like an explorer, right? And he had a loose similarity with Baden-Powell, right? So, you know, it's got some meaning. Now, the thing is, right, there's 3 elongations here tied together, right? There's 3 elongations tied together, right? And he said that he equates it to a compass point, right? Pointing, or a spearhead. Now, this is where it comes in with Walmsley and Hankinson, right? The new logo, whoever drew it, or whoever directed them to draw it, depending on how thoroughly you question them, or if they've got influences coming in which they're not fully aware of, right? There's not really that much influence that you need, really, because this still does loosely resemble the Scout logo, but it's extremely simplified down to, like, symbology, right? Now, the thing about this logo at the moment is that it's almost like a cut, like a sever. And it's almost kind of like severing the root from the flower, or the root from the leaf, right? It's almost like severing it across the middle. It's actually broken, right? Whereas the Scout logo, it's not meant to be a break. It's actually meant to be a tie or a tag, right? Now, you might say, oh, well, that just symbolises the tag, or it symbolises the tie, right? But it also could be interpreted as severing it. Now, if you're wanting to... Now, depending on what you're... This is now down to opinion and law, right? So... Right, so this is the book, okay? So this is the Young Knights of the Empire book, right? And this is actually by Baden-Powell. So it's actually... The whole point of inventing the whole organisation, and the whole point of having it so that it's a type of organisation where you're sworn in on an oath to the king and so forth, and the fact that he actually wrote a book about this and styled the Scouts as the Young Knights of the Empire suggests that he meant it. He suggests that he actually meant it, right? And even on here it's showing a scout dressed as a knight holding the shield with the symbol on it, okay, like the symbol that he drew. Okay, so unless he was a joker or a comedian, and this is a guy who had an LLD, a doctorate in law as well, so, you know, and a military guy, so he didn't seem like the guy who would do something just for comedy value or a joke if he wasn't serious about it. And I think this is where the challenge comes in with Hankinson and Walmsley, right? So, this is the thing, and, you know... Baden-Powell actually drew the logo himself. You know, there could actually be a claim, right? If you wanted to get awkward with Hankinson and Walmsley, right? You could say that Baden-Powell drew that logo, and that's how he wanted it to be, and he wanted it to say "Be Prepared" underneath, and he wanted it to be like a chivalrous emblem, right? Which is kind of how it's styled on that shield there, although the shield doesn't say "Be Prepared" on it, right? Now, you could say that this really is breaking tradition with what Baden-Powell intended, because firstly, it doesn't say "Be Prepared" underneath it, and thirdly, rather than wanting to continue when Scouts have been sworn in on the basis that I've set out, it's almost like severing the tie. Like someone decided that it wasn't a good idea and they didn't even want it to exist anymore, and they tried to sever it. Now, these are the type of problems we've got with the right to petition. And even the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. If you've got a government that doesn't even want to acknowledge that we've got privileges enshrined in constitutional law that have entire books about them, that like Baron Denman wrote, and various acts, and they've been lying to us about it, and they've been trying to undermine it because they don't want us to use those privileges and have those rights, then when you come to the Scouts and you think, oh, the Scouts, there's another example, they created an order and had people sworn in, and it's meant to have a charter and it's meant to have some kind of authority and jurisdiction, but it was wanted people to use that to help people, right? And then when you end up speaking to Walmsley and Hankinson, it turns out that they couldn't give a monkeys, and, you know, they're just bothered about, you know, their own training camps, training their scouts and getting their awards and achievements. But it seems like this is what Hankinson themselves and Walmsley are an embodiment of this line across here, this, like, severed line, you know, after you leave the Scouts and, you know, that's it, see you later, it's severed. So it's almost like, you know, these two guys are an embodiment of this slash across here. Now, the interesting thing about our ancient site right here, Castle Hill, which these two guys don't seem interested in at all whatsoever, it actually is the shape of the Scout logo in the middle, right? And the other unique thing is that there are three other unknown sites. Well, they're not. There are three other sites that are also elongated as well. There's one at Meltham, and there's one actually close to this one, and they're the only three hill fort shaped sites together, and the other two don't get any acknowledgement properly at all whatsoever to have been anything significant, but they're all three elongated sites grouped together, right? And that's the thing about the Scout sign. It's got three elongations, right? Grouped together, held together, right? And he said it's meant to be like a compass, which is like on this ancient site. Now, the other thing about this ancient site is that just after 1066, William the Conqueror and this de Lacy guy, they made it into a fortress out of the prehistoric site, and they carved a trench, right, straight across the middle of it. They carved a trench straight across the middle of it, down the middle, right, almost severing it in half, cutting it in half. Okay, and you can see it on this picture here, there, just behind where the tower is, right? And that literally, if that is not, there are coincidences and there are coincidences, right? Now, I'm not saying that you're going to go find the actual guy who drew this new logo and it's a slight variation of the others, okay? But when you start to bring in Patrick Stewart and the Enterprise and the whole fact that everyone knows about that and it has a basis and meaning behind it, it's not just random. You know, they cast people because they might be familiar or similar to someone or for other reasons, right? The fact that it's the same shape and it's got the cut down the middle, the sever, and the new Scout logo, whatever powers of intervention there are, whatever mild or strong influences you can have, whether the person sat there doing something is aware of these or not, as his hand's moving across the drawing board, right? There's something going on there. Now, it's true that this logo here is registered to the Scouts and, you know, copyright and everything else, but the other one isn't. Now, that means anyone could really use it or copy it because it's not currently registered anymore. But everyone knows what it is, and it was at the time. Okay, now this is the thing. If everyone who's sworn in is actually still a Scout and entitled to the entitlement, which is what Baden-Powell was meant to have wanted, then if the older logos are no longer registered for copyright or trademark to the main Scout college, should we call it, right, then that means the other Scouts can use the previous ones, and they're not only privileged to the Scout training. And, you know, why would you be stopped from using the own logo, which is, you know, the symbol for what you're given, right? Why would you be prevented from using it? That's a good question. So, therefore, you know, and why would I use this stamp? Well, because it mentions a charter on it. The others doesn't, you know. It says incorporated by Royal Charter. And the symbol actually is meant to say be prepared underneath it. That's what he intended and designed, right? So this is the thing. That seal lets people know that something is associated with the Charter, which is what you're sworn in on and what gives power and authority to you acting. Just like the orders, you know, all these different knighthood orders that are created, like the Knights of the Bath and so forth, are an order, right? So this is the thing. So as far as I'm concerned, this new modern logo is only associated to the current operating Scouts that are training young people and, you know, doing adventure excursions and so forth. So if the other logo is now not registered anymore to that central body, then the other people who previously were in have got an entitlement and right to use it without breaching copyright. But if they've got an entitlement, that is what their symbol actually is. Just like when you're given a medal or award, you don't hand it back in and they give you a new one every time they update the logo. That's the whole point. And that's the thing that I think that Wormsley needs to get his head around. Now, what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to get in contact with the College of Arms, because I think it is actually a matter for the College of Arms to comment on. So I'm going to get in touch with them, and I'm going to see what they say about the fact that this new modern logo is currently registered in use, but the other ones, it doesn't prevent anyone else from using copyright if they've got, particularly if you've got a legal right and entitlement. Is that more actually fitting and more appropriate for those persons who were associated with it at the time of what the logo was, right? In fact, is that more appropriate and more fitting, and the fact that there's no current copyright or trademark on it? Now, if someone else wants to use it who wasn't a scout and wasn't sworn in, it's them themselves that are trying to make and claim something that they themselves are or are not, right? But as for copying the logo and using the logo, previous and past scouts, if the current one's not registered, if the old logo is no longer registered, then the previous members can use it if they've got an entitlement to use it. Now, if someone uses it who doesn't have an entitlement, they might not be breaching copyright or trade right of the main scout group. But this is really important. It's they themselves as a person are making a false claim of themselves that they have or have not been sworn in on anything, right? So I don't think it could be any more perfect, because this new one, right, is to do with all the modern organisation and training of scouts, and it is registered and in use, right? And the old one, they haven't re-registered it, right? So that means that past scouts who were associated with it and in conflict with the modern groups, and it symbolises who and what they are still, like when you get a medal for being a knight. But as for someone who is not a scout and has never been a scout and has not been sworn in, right, if they use the old logo, which apparently is not registered for copyright or trademark anymore, then they themselves, as a person, it's them. You know, if they're not breaking any copyright or trademark using the logo because it's not registered anymore, right, it's not being refreshed, then it's not naturally the logo. It's not anything to do with the logo. Then it's actually only to do with the personage themselves, whether they are making a false statement about who and what they are themselves, right? So, you know, what I actually think is that with the actual scouts themselves, they're so kind of like involved in their activities and training and awards and everything like that, that they are oblivious to and unaware that there actually could be anything other than that existing, which actually is, you know, every single scout who's ever been sworn in exists and has got a right to do something. And the whole point, you see, this is the thing, the whole point of it is to learn how to do things and then help people, you know, for their whole life when you leave. Otherwise, there's no point to it. It's not actually, because this is the thing when you're learning all these things, you know, okay, you do a lot of help, you give a lot of help, but only on an apprenticeship basis. On the basis of apprenticeship model, right, you're going along and learning it as you're doing it, but in order to be able to do it, right? The apprenticeship part is not the end goal. And I think that's where Wormsley and Hankinson have kind of lost the plot a little bit, and they're scratching their heads when I come in and say, all right, I decided to use my scout entitlement. And they're just like got a big question mark over their heads going like, what? What are you doing? I say, well, I'm using my scout entitlement. That's what it is, you know. And actually, I've actually started to think, right, you know, whoever, you know, there's a certain persons have got authority over the scouts currently, right? There's certain persons like the committee and the board and so forth, but it's still under a jurisdiction of the Privy Council, right? I would actually challenge whether the board, whether it votes in or not, could have even changed the logo so it doesn't say "be prepared" on it anymore, and the original Baden-Powell himself, the creator, which, I know some of his family and ancestors are still involved in it, right? But I guess, they're just sort of like going along with, what the committee and board votes on as well, I suppose. But, would Baden-Powell have liked this logo? Would Baden-Powell have been happy with that severed cut across the middle, just like this, like slashing out of our ancient site, and the fact that he wanted Scouts to continue and carry on and it to be a proper established order, right? This is the thing. Can that be legally challenged in court? Well, actually, it can't actually be challenged in the normal courts. And this is another thing that Hankinson and Walmsley need to also understand, which is the entire point. The Scouts operate under their own jurisdiction, and it's actually not. It's not actually the committee or board. It's actually the Privy Council jurisdiction, right? So any legal contest or arguments cannot be. It isn't any business of the police or courts, and that's something that Hankinson and Walmsley need to learn. To start with that. They might take it for granted when they're going around doing scouting activities, right? But the fact is that it operates under its own jurisdiction, and it's a jurisdiction of law. Therefore, any issue over the logo or its usage is to do with the Privy Council and the College of Arms, right? And actually, I would challenge this new logo. I would challenge this new logo as literally not being worthy of the Scouts, being an abomination. It's almost kind of like it's a little bit like those fish stickers that you see on the back of the cars for the church, but even worse, like it's even worse than that. It's so basic now. It's actually, this symbolises, congratulations, we've now severed the tie of the Scouts. Hankinson and Walmsley are the embodiment of like a big pair of rods going like, see you later. Right? Nice to know you, nice to see you later, bye-bye. Right? I don't know you. Who are you? Who are you? We're training kids up, we're having a ball of a time at scout camp, But, aren't you supposed to be helping other people out in the world, This is the thing, and not just through your apprenticeship, No, actually, the rest of the Scouts are meant to be helping people. That's the whole point, right? So, I mean, this logo is terrible because it's almost like the carving out of this site, and there's someone who knows these things, right? I'm not saying the person who sat down at the computer and drew that, was thinking of it, but this is the thing about knowing about influences and so forth, and knowing what I know about the 1688 Bill of Rights, right to petition, and the fact that those rights and privileges have been undermined severely. In fact, I think Lord Walney's just been sacked currently to do with all Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion. So, I would actually contest this logo here as it's more of an insult to the Scouts. It's more of an abomination. It's more of a severing of roots. I don't think that it symbolises a tie, tying them together, because the two end things are incomplete as well, right? It's almost kind of like, it seems to me that it's on this trend of, McDonald's drive-thrus and the, this thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has raised, which is the fact that people are getting more unhealthy and unhealthy generally.